What is the deal, beautiful people? My name is Ramon. Welcome back to the channel. Here we discuss any and everything photography. Today's topic is photo essays and the importance of photo essays. I've always said that for those of us who are struggling to really apply our aspirations as photographers to something meaningful, you need to do projects. And part of me eating my own dog food is what we call it in the tech world. Part of me taking that advice is I decided to come back and learn the art of storytelling through photo essays. And photo essays is not anything wild or crazy difficult to understand. In fact, the concept's quite simple. The textbook definition is an essay or short article consisting of text and numerous photographs. Obviously, you guys know we're not going to put any text in it. It's just photographs. So I'm going to walk you guys through some images that I've taken on one of these photo essays. And hopefully you can start to really develop a taste for, at least one technique, how you can execute on a photo essay. But before I do that, I would like to give some advice and things I found really helped me execute a photo essay and really have it be a cohesive thing. The first is I think finding your subject. Within finding your subject, therein follows the rest of the blocks, right? You need to say, okay, what's the story I'm gonna tell? And you can't just look somewhere and find a story, but you can look at something and find out what that something or someone is doing in the world or at that moment. And once you find that, it's kind of like, it's kind of like, there you go. That's your step one. And I think most important is, because let's face it, there's a ton of boring things going on around us. And I think it's important that when you're looking for a subject, you find one that's at the very least, meaningful to you or a little bit interesting to you. That way, there's some enthuse that you can lend to the entire process. Two, I think it's important to compartmentalize the actions of this subject. So once you've identified this subject, it's important to sit back and say, okay, what are the 3 to 4 to 5 things that this subject is doing or will be doing, or 5 pieces of this subject. And the reason you want to identify this is because this is gonna create these little sub stories around the subject, and that gives you very specific and unique things to focus on when you're really attacking this subject. So for instance, one of my earlier photo essays was the wife and I went to buy some groceries. This was like a year ago, and I said, okay, what's involved in this process? So yes, we leave the house, we get in the car, we go to the supermarket. I mean, I've compartmentalized that, right? But it's still pretty broad, but we can work with that, right? So one, I'll need to capture a portrait of her in the car driving to the supermarket. Two, when we get to the supermarket, I may want to capture some images of her reaching down to pick up some vegetables, some fruit. And then 3, on the way back home, we take all the groceries out the car and we put it in the cart and we're pushing it in. I may want to get a picture of that. Those 3 things, or the variation of those, however much images I took in each story, each subset of that story, when you put them all together, you can sort of see a timeline development, right? And I think that's really the goal. And then the third, I think, is once you've identified your subject and the story you want to tell, it's kind of important to identify the drivers for this story. And what I mean by the drivers for your storytelling, you know composition is going to be your main driver, right? I don't have to tell you guys that composition is number one in photography. But what about color? You know what I mean? Are you using black and white? Are you using color? Are you shooting for black and white? Are you shooting for color? I don't know what your subject is, but you can use color or the lack thereof as a driver to the story to really hammer in the essence and the feel of the story. And then you know, another one could be light, right? How are you using light to expose it? Are you using light to show mystery? Like these are all drivers that I think it's important to plant that idea in your head right before you start to execute that photo essay. And I think together these things kind of do form a pretty dope mix. So let's start looking at these images. The first, of course, this is a and this video was shot right in the thick of it, of the coronavirus crisis and the quarantine and the lockdown. So I live on the 5th floor in a building in New York, and as you can tell, this hallway in itself looks very ominous. It looks very empty, very lonely. And I think this is indicative of the state of New York right now. It's quite eerie because any given day there'll be people walking back and forth here. But yes, here's my hallway. You walk into the elevator. This second image is a little bit down the hallway to the right. There's a window. And even when you look out that window, you can see that there's still this eerie quietness on the street, right? There's still an absence of people, and it looks very strange. And let me put this in perspective to you guys. I live in Coney Island, so I'm about a 10 to 15 minute walk from the beach, and that street that you're seeing here, where those trees are, that walkway, there's always people. They're always running, jumping, playing, biking, skateboarding. Everyone's always walking to the beach. And on this night, it was about 65 degrees. So it was a beautiful spring night in New York. And New Yorkers live for this. But look at that. There's no one anywhere. The third image you see here is these trees are really starting to blossom. And these trees, you can't help but get the vibe of spring because it is spring, right? And then the fourth image we have is an ambulance, one of many, because the hospital's not too far, and there is an increase in ambulance activity. Of course, you guys know, because of what's happening with the virus. So here's a picture of an ambulance hauling ass to get back to the hospital. Hopefully whoever was in there made it. This fifth image is an image of the only people I think we saw out that night, right? It's two young ladies walking, talking, doing whatever they do. And again, here's that walkway I just was describing to you. Usually you see the young ladies on the left side. Usually the left side is for bikes and skateboards and scooters, and people who are walking stick to the right. But because there's literally no one out, they can kind of break the law, right? And then you see the beautiful trees with the spring bloom. And then here at the end of the block is, you know, we walk to the end of the block to get some fresh air to just come back down. The end of the block, here you see another ambulance hauling ass, right? And this becomes, I think for that little 15, 20 minutes we were out to get some air, there were probably 6 or 7 ambulances. So it's a very, very difficult time and a lot going on. And then the seventh image, this is just an image of someone's living room, and there's that lone person just standing there, and the neighbors, the lights are on, all the lights are on in every room because everyone is home in every room, and there's no one outside. It's such a crazy, usually you'll see lights on here and there, but there'll be people outside sitting on the bench talking, socializing, drinking, smoking, whatever they do. Not so much. And then a bus drove by, and look at that bus. There's almost no one in it, right? And you kind of get the feeling like, man, is that bus a death trap? You sort of feel for the people in that bus. There's no social distance in there, but people gotta go to work. These people can't afford to lose their job, right? So that's a tough one to look at. And then on the way back, You see, here's those blooms, those trees blooming again, and there's my building in the background, and again you see all the lights on. Everyone's home, everyone's fully awake, right? Everyone's I guess having the same panic that we're sharing. Here's those trees again, so beautiful, so very beautiful outside right now, and really it's just a street lamp coming through the trees, illuminating the bloom. So I really love that. Here's my wife putting the keys into the apartment to re-enter our home, and of course you notice that she's wearing gloves, and again here's this image with her in the glove pushing on the elevator to call the elevator, wearing that glove, and then finally she's selecting floor number 5. That's our floor, and there she is with the glove. So this is, I guess part of this was I wanted to document my part of this very unprecedented time in our lives. I can't say history because there's always going to be these times in history, but we've never seen it to this effect, and I wanted to do my piece in the form of a photo essay to look back on and say, wow, shit was real when that was happening. Like, it was wild. And I do intend to go back out and capture some more images, like maybe as we go to the supermarket in a few days. I'm gonna take my camera. What's worth noting with this, the other layer of the challenge here was I used my Canon T4i, very old camera with a 51.8. So I guess the camera and the lens kit combo was about 300, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could still capture dope images. And then of course, if you guys have seen my previous video about my black and white journey, I'm only doing storytelling in 2020 in black and white. So that's why all these images are black and white. So there's a lot that's coming together in this photo essay that's all encompassing of who I am as a photographer and my journey. And I quite like how it came out. And I really want to get your opinion on this. Yes, the opinion on the work here that you've seen as well, but what more can you add to the conversation around photo essays? Have you ever done them before? Can you hit the comments with some suggestion on how to help people ease into it, how to help people execute it? I would love to read that. My name is Ramon. Like the video if you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Plenty more content coming. I'm out of here. Peace.